as expected. Turning the next phase of Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan into a reality is proving to be a monumental challenge. As well as pushing to maintain the current fragile peace, the US is pushing hard to get Israel and Hamas to take the next steps. Today, US Vice President JD Vance met the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem as part of a diplomatic blitz to keep everything on track. The current US approach has been described by some Israeli media as babysitting, a reference to Benjamin Netanyahu's family nickname and the flow of high-profile Trump administration's officials heading to Israel this week. Both men rejected the idea that Washington is calling the shots, insisting that the US and Israel are working together.
They say that Israel controls the United States. A week later, they say the United States controls Israel. This is hogwash. We have a partnership, an alliance of partners who share common values and common goals.
Look, we don't want a vassal state, and that's not what Israel is. We don't want a client state, and that's not what Israel is. We want a partnership. We want an ally here. And the president believes very strongly that if Israel, honestly, with our Gulf Arab allies, can play a very positive leadership role in this region, to where, frankly, the United States can care less about the Middle East because our allies in the region are stepping up and taking control and taking ownership of their area of the world.
Well, despite today's talk of partnerships and agreement, the US is struggling to make progress on some of Gaza's big issues that still need to be resolved. Mr. Vance has admitted that a tough task lies ahead. Among the challenges, disarming Hamas and agreeing on which countries will be part of a new US-backed international stabilization force, which is meant to ensure the territory's security. A force of some sort is needed quickly. The territory has no functioning government, and Hamas is seeking to reassert its grip on power. Our next report contains images that you may find distressing.
This is Hamas reimposing control in the Gaza Strip. Public executions like this used as a show of force against rival clans and alleged Israeli collaborators.
I think ultimately that was really just a message, I think a very clear message signalling that things like treason, things like criminality will not be tolerated, especially now, when Gazans need this moment of reprieve.
With Gaza in ruins after 2 years of war, there's been a breakdown of law and order. As Gazans return to their homes, basic infrastructure and services run by Hamas have collapsed. Now, Hamas security forces are back patrolling the streets. Around 7,000 of them have been deployed, though not everyone feels safe.
Yes, the rocket strikes have stopped. The killing has stopped. But in terms of public safety and security, there's no police or government. Gaza is in a security vacuum.
Honestly, after the war ended, we started to feel safe. There's security and discipline now, and the thieves and collaborators we're all dealt with.
In recent days, Hamas has clashed violently with rival clans, some said to be backed by Israel, and blamed for the looting of aid. US President Donald Trump has given Hamas a temporary green light to instill order.
We are standing because they do want to stop the problems, and they've been open about it, and we gave them approval for a period of time.
But will Hamas really give up control? Analysts believe the group is willing to hand over governance of Gaza, but wants guarantees before laying down its arms, an Israeli requirement.
There are certain caveats to that. Israel has to demonstrate that it will be a good faith partner in negotiations, and the fact that Israel has a systematic record of quite literally assassinating Hamas's negotiating team and moderates within the movement at that isn't really something that instills much confidence for a group like Hamas to want to lay down their weapons.
And while Hamas is by no means popular in Gaza, for many in the Strip, it is still the best choice for now.
Jean-Marie Guehenno is Professor of International Conflict Resolution at Columbia University. He also served as the UN Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations from 2000 to 2008 and oversaw missions around the world. Welcome to DW, Professor. We've heard Vice President Vance saying the ceasefire is holding better than expected. What's your assessment? And help us understand what indicators we should be looking out for.
Well, we just saw your reporting from Gaza with, as was said, the security vacuum, with Hamas trying to brutally restore its authority. What we don't know is the level of strength of the various criminal groups that exist at the moment in Gaza. So for an international security force, that security assessment is key, because it will define the kind of risks that the force will have to confront. And a force is not a military force is not a police force, and you need in Gaza, you need also police, you need a judiciary, you need all sorts of structures to begin to restore a sense of normalcy.
So when you say Hamas is trying to reassert its authority, do you see that as being an interim measure while things get sorted out, or is this Hamas saying, no, we're not going anywhere?
I don't think that Hamas will spontaneously surrender its power. I think there has to be more visibility on what the future political process is. When we read the plan, we see that there is no space for Hamas. So would Hamas accept that? I doubt it. I think the best one could hope for is Hamas having a political role and surrendering its armed militia role, but even that will be, I think, not so easy to achieve.
So let's talk about the difficulties of achieving various bits of this plan, starting with disarming Hamas. How do you see that proceeding? They say they won't give up their weapons until Israel demonstrates good faith. And we've heard Benjamin Netanyahu saying that the war will not end until Hamas disarms.
Well, I mean, the question of disarmament of armed groups, it's a question that one has to confront in many post-conflict contexts. And I think everywhere you see that disarmament happens only when there is some kind of real, genuine security guarantee for those who disarm, because otherwise they see their weapons as their security guarantee. And so if there is not a serious alternative to their own armament, they are unlikely to disarm, or they will surrender some weapons and keep others. So I think the process of disarmament cannot be separated from a broader process of what kind of political arrangements will rule Gaza.
We'll come to the politics shortly. First, let's talk about this proposed international stabilization force, this multinational force. Are you clear yet what it will actually do?
Well, before deciding what it does, I think you need to see how it's assembled, on what basis it is deployed. All these questions are not yet addressed. As for what it will do, I think there is an ambiguity which is linked to the uncertainty of the political situation there. Will the Palestinians, after years of bombing and suffering under the rule of Hamas and then under the Israeli bombings, will they be among them a serious risk of attack against the force? Or will there be a sigh of relief? That we don't really know. I think that there probably are criminal groups who will challenge the force. So the force will have both a police role and a military role.
Right.
And we have seen how difficult it has been for the Israelis to really take over Gaza and to downgrade the capacities of Hamas. I think that a force that will have more constraints than Israel, that will not bomb indiscriminately, I think such a force will have enormous difficulty in reducing to nothing the security threat in Gaza. And I think that force will need to be complemented by a police force.
Right. So let's pick up on the point you made just then about how this force is assembled, a very vexed issue. I want you to take a listen to this exchange between JD Vance and Benjamin Netanyahu about the possibility of Turkish involvement.
On the question of the Turks, I think, let me quote the Vice President from yesterday. He said that I have very strong opinions on that. And he also said, we have to do it with, Israel will be obviously decide together on who does that. So I have very strong opinions about that. You want to guess what they are? Yeah, you know them.
So Jean-Marie Guehenno, we have Turkey, which has been a vocal critic of Israel, and we have Benjamin Netanyahu saying that he has strong opinions of his own. These political red lines must affect the credibility of this stability mission, and indeed whether anyone's going to pay any attention to it.
Well, that's the real dilemma, because a force to have some credibility with the Palestinian, to be seen not just as a subcontractor of Israel, has to be clearly independent from Israel. At the same time, as we just heard, the force cannot be deployed against the views of Israel. And Turkey, since it was discussed, Turkey has had sympathy for the Muslim Brothers. Hamas was initially the Gaza branch of the Muslim Brothers, so one can see how Turkey, from the Israeli standpoint, government is not a good troop contributor. I think the troop contributors, they need to be seen as independent for Israel and acceptable to the Palestinians, and that's a rather difficult dilemma to address.
Peace is messy. What you're teaching us here is that, regardless of the fact that there are details missing from this Trump 20-point plan, you can't have 20 points. You have a bit of a mess there, and a bit of a mess there, and a bit of none of these stages is discrete, even though each depends on the other being in place in order to proceed.
Exactly. I mean, it's you try to cut the problem in smaller pieces, but at the end of the day, you have to connect the dots. And, there is the other big issue is, what is the authority that authorizes the force? Is it the Security Council? I don't see any alternative, because it's not Israel that is going to invite the force. It's not the Palestinian Authority, because Israel doesn't want a role for the Palestinian Authority. So I don't see a real alternative to the Security Council. And then, of course, if it is the Security Council, there's a question of the position of the P5, and in particular of Russia and China. I don't think they would veto a resolution that would have the support of a number of Arab countries. But they might not really support it. They might abstain. So the political basis of the force will be a bit shaky as external powers look at how it's deployed. And I think for the troop contributing countries, that's going to be a very important issue, because they know that they have their weapons, but they need political backing if they are to be credible. And what that political backing will be, that very much depends on what are the future arrangements for Gaza. It's hard for the Arab countries that might participate. It will be hard to participate if they don't have a little more clarity. Right. On what comes after the force, because they will not want to be deployed indefinitely.
Thanks for talking us through that so clearly, Professor Jean-Marie Guehenno from Columbia University.